and this is a Socialist Telly special to look at the impact of the policing, crime and sentencing bill that the government is pushing through Parliament at the moment on the community generally in the UK, but particularly on the Gypsy-Roma-Traveller community, who haven't had a great deal of coverage in terms of what that bill is going to mean for them, but it's especially onerous. And I'm delighted to welcome to the programme today, we have Mikey Walsh, who is a GRT activist and has kindly agreed to join us after I chatted to him last night about some of his reaction to this bill. And before we kick off, I'm just going to show a little bit about what that reaction was when Mikey was expressing himself on social media yesterday. And just to give a flavour of the horror of the impact of this for Mikey and people like him. So watching UK Parliament use the ending of my culture's entire way of life as a political vote winner, I just don't have the words for it. I am effing broken by this. We've been going on about it for months. And, you know, it has to be said in context to set up the discussion that, you know, Keir Starmer decided he was going to oppose this bill and tell MPs to oppose it. And that's all well and good. But, you know, that came after the protests and the police action in Clapham Common last weekend. Before that, he was quite happy to tell all his MPs to abstain and wave it through. And yet none of the other impacts of this on people, 10-year sentences for annoying people in a protest and more, were enough to persuade him that it was a good idea to oppose this bill. Starmer's abstention addiction kicking in yet again. Mikey, we got a bit of a flavour from your tweet there as to what your reaction was to that, but tell us yourself, mate. What was that like last night when you saw that go through?
I was just appalled by it. I was appalled by. I knew it would go through because that's the way it is there now. We've got an overwhelming majority because of all the bastards that, you know, went through this in a Brexit election. Well done, everyone. And the Tories promised this. This was on their manifesto to pretty much wipe us out as a culture. But all your hand ringers and your celebrities and your blue tickers and whatever else would have rather had that than have had a socialist government. So I'm just so angry about it. I haven't slept. I've been up all night and I just kept going on these Twitter threads and, you know, like just already seeing. I'm already predicting by the end of the day it'll just be forgotten about. But trying to explain this to my family, a lot of my lot aren't on Twitter. We aren't in the echo chamber. We don't hear a lot of this stuff. So we're stuck in this kind of thing where literally people. So a lot of my lot still move around. We have a nomadic way of life. It's the way it's socially and a part of what we are. And there's always been a misunderstanding of what we are, and we all get treated in. Well, look, it's totally fine to be racist against gypsies in this thing, and this bill says that, doesn't it? Because if it wasn't for the police, those poor girls getting their heads slammed to the ground, in a weird way, that happening was actually able to give Labour some balls to vote against it. So FUCK, every single MP that stood up and said, oh, you know, like, and mentioned the GRT people. I'm like, yeah, this would have all gone through the other day. You abstained on it until the last minute. So, you know, it's all performative bollocks as far as I'm concerned. But the raw deal that our lot get and what this bill will do. So, you know, basically it gives police free rein to just walk onto a camp, take our homes away, take our cars away. We're homeless, get put into prison, and kids put into care for just what? For being gypsies. And they say, oh, you're moving on to, you know, private land and whatever else. And yes, that's fine. But, you know, we're also trying to campaign to get more traveller sites. We do have licensed and proper traveller sites. and we move around and whatever else. But then you also have these, we've got this constant kind of waiting list that never happens. People never able to move on to them. So I'm so sorry. I think I'm just so incensed about everything. I can't put everything into words properly, and I can't express as good as somebody else might be able to, as far as our culture and the way we're treated.
I think you're doing a perfectly good job, mate. I mean, while you gather your thoughts a little bit, I'll do, a little bit of context, because you said about it being okay to be racist towards gypsies, and a few years ago I covered the case of well, at that time a technically Labour MP who had published a pamphlet in his area in which he listed a variety of types of antisocial behaviour, and in that pamphlet he included gypsy travellers as antisocial behaviour. So simply being a gypsy traveller by implication was antisocial, and I featured on my site a young lad who had written to Jeremy Corbyn, who was the Labour leader at the time, and about what impact this had had on him. And he said, that anti-gypsy racism is the last acceptable racism. It's generally considered anti. Yeah, as far as he was concerned, this young lad, that pretty much every other type of racism in society had rightly become unacceptable, but it was okay still to be racist against gypsies, as far as a lot of people were concerned. And obviously,
might still get walked out of pubs and restaurants all the time, just for
a lot
of us are white passing, but people know what we are when we walk in, and they'll walk us straight out again.
Yes,
and we they'll take your surname. They all know the surnames. They'll know, we've seen that from Pontins.
In case anybody's not aware of that, I mean, that was the situation where Pontins had circulated a list of surnames that they thought were likely to be traveller people, and therefore, were telling their staff, not, as I understand it, at least, not to take bookings from people with those surnames, because they didn't. They
blanketing loads of Irish surnames just in case that any of them might have been travellers. It's that kind of thing. But then I've seen a lot of like stuff that you see stuff go up on Twitter all the time. That's like casual racism, against gypsies all the time. And I grew up in I'm 40. I grew up in the 80s, and I remember when we went to school. And it's still no different. But then we used to be kept away from all the other children. So the parents would complain. So people talk about how a lot of us don't go to school. When you try to go to school, the parents complain. They don't want you in the school. And we used to be kept away from the other kids, and we didn't learn anything. All we got was literally we got put in a room with a teacher who basically just asked questions about us. And then she wrote a poetry book in our language. So well done her. But we've had it. I remember being in my teens and seeing the pubs with the brass things over the doors saying, no travellers, no dogs. It's just a casual thing that doesn't go away. And it's even in the comments under this, I can already see that there'll be anti-traveller stuff. It's people don't. I think that's why I was despairing and last night, and why I'm still so incensed about it today, is that I know that nothing's going to come of it, and it doesn't matter. I complained to Labour when I was a member, and the people I complained about got a promotion, and I lost my membership. So fuck Labour. That's how I feel about them. And abstaining on this bill that we've been talking about for months, that literally allows the police to decide that we're doing wrong and then snatch our homes away from us, stick them in auctions and put us in prison. I am absolutely disgusted by that. That's allowed to happen.
Is that definitely part? Because I mean, I've seen a couple of people disputing that that's what the law is going to be allowing them to do, and yet that does seem to be.
They dispute it. They give you all the fine wording and all that crap, but that once you've got a police state that already has a prejudgment of what we are, walks onto a camp, they're not going to give any of us the time of day, are they? They're going to do exactly what Mrs. has employed them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do we stand? And yet we've just been a tiny little chess piece amongst all the other stuff in this bill, because there's a lot of terrible things in this bill that's going to, well, look, it's just going to move us into a fascist state. That's the way it is. And what do we do once we get there? Well, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do?
Yes, well, I mean, it's part of the ongoing. Well, it started off as a creep of control, of everything in the society, really, to try to prevent any criticism of the Tories in government, and it's now become a gallop, really. I mean, it's there. When we saw when David Cameron first got in, he started installing a load of Tory people in the upper echelons of the BBC management, for example, and changed the programming there, particularly on BBC News. We've seen the revolving door between BBC and other stations, and being Tory advisors, so they'll go from one job to the other and then back again. And now we've seen the BBC get a Conservative donor as a chair and another Tory supporter as its director, I think. So a program that tends to be quite critical of the Tories, and I mean, hell, it's not so the short of things to be critical of them about.
I'm like that shows left wing. I'm like, you consider that left wing?
Yeah.
It's like load of centrist see you next Tuesdays. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sick of it. And do you know what? They're the fucking worst as far as I'm concerned, because all the hand rigging they do now, just like I said in my little Twitter rant, all the hand rigging, where have we got? They're like, oh, who thought we'd get here? I did. I fucking did. I'm sorry.
Nobody can say they weren't warned, yeah.
I did. We did. And I am so angry that they can now stand and wring their hands about it.
The situation, yeah, I mean, what a lot of people in that sort of context would call left, we would call liberals probably. And it's often said that liberalism is the handmaiden to fascism, and I mean that's the way it's working out in this case as well. The liberals got very upset at the idea of a proper left government, and you know what? Like, the thing is that fully
left-wing government. That's the thing, is because the honeymoon period is over. The left were trying to compromise with snakes, and we saw all along, like, it wasn't the right wing that destroyed Labour. It was Labour that did it. We know that. And we also, and people can talk all they like about that 2019 election. We know it was because of Brexit. And yeah, people who did complain about Jeremy Corbyn on the door, that wasn't because he was a bad man. That's because everyone was being indoctrinated to believe he was. My mother will say, oh, that Jeremy Corbyn, oh, he's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you can't say a bad thing about him, though. No, that's right. Because because people literally like make a joke before he appears on the screen. And who's the person that is in cancel culture now? Who's not made one mainstream TV appearance or anything since the election was over? Cancel culture. Jeremy Corbyn is, had to suffer all of that. But for the sake of not having a socialist government, Labour was prepared, and every single centrist lovey was prepared to remove their mask and destroy itself to make sure that didn't happen. And now they can rewrite history as much as they like, but they can't put the mask back on because we saw what they are. We've seen you. So you can say whatever you like. You can gaslight us as much as you like with your fake hot takes. We've seen what you've done. And so you can call people cranks, and you can call people racist, and you can call people whatever. It's all just bollocks as far as I'm concerned. You can wring your hands now, but where were you when it came to the crunch? When everyone was warning you it was socialism or barbarism, you chose barbarism. And you know what? They'll do it again. Do it again. If they had the chance again, they'd do it again. Especially when it comes to GRT people, because they couldn't give two shits about us.
Yes. I mean, it seems it's glaringly obvious you feel very betrayed by the Labour Party, or at least the now dominant portion of the Labour Party.
Yeah, and this is the thing for me, is that like there are sections like, I'm sure there are GRT people that are in Labour, very few, that that still have a belief in it, but I'm a lot more sceptical than that. And I've seen the workings of everyone else. Change of leadership's not going to change Labour because it is rotted. There are so many racist, do you know what? As long as the right of Labour don't have control of Labour, they'll always destroy it.
Mm.
And that's the problem. As long as the right of Labour aren't in control of it, they'll smash it to pieces.
Mm.
And they're prepared to do that. And they're prepared to let us fall into a fascist government now because of it.
You mentioned, mate, that in terms of direct actions by Labour people that have now been promoted. I mean, we don't need to go into detail as to who they are, but give us some information about what those complaints entailed, because what were they doing that was giving you such cause for concern?
Look, I've had to watch public tweets from Labour MPs warning people about gypsies moving to the area, talking about how how we're violent towards women, literally posting leaflets as a vote winner to your constituents, which are Antitraveler and Antigypsy, and that's all totally fine to them. And I don't get. Apology is not enough. Why are you still on the front bench? Why are you in the House of Lords? Your apology ain't enough. I don't care whatever GRT magazine says it's all fine now, because I don't. Because you don't represent all travelling people. Just to say, oh, it's fine now. Because that's not good enough. If you're a racist, you have to pay for being a racist. And you shouldn't be on the front bench making decisions on behalf of the country when you hold those beliefs against people.
Yes. Well, I mean, there was a recent instance in which I condemned Keir Starmer for appointing people onto his front bench who had been had a history of racism, and somebody complained to Impress, the press regulator, about that, and Impress actually partially upheld the complaint, saying it was too much to say that he promoted racists onto his front bench, and yet some of them are those people that you're talking about here, who were taking a racist stance on something as being a vote winner, and those guys didn't get slapped down for that and put into purgatory somewhere. They got promoted. So, I mean, you mentioned though that
every single section of all of our boards that are meant to protect people, it's all rigged. Look at you can go deeper. You only need to do. You don't need to do much research to see how rigged things are and how rotten things are and how most of them always support the Tories. Those celebrities that literally spend all day on Twitter trying to get their own name trending by aggravating left wingers, and so they're spend all day quote tweeting them, and then suddenly that person's name's in the thing. Who do you think they vote for? Who does that celebrity vote for? Have you ever asked who that celebrity votes for? Because they're there to aggravate. They're there to make sure that their side always stays in control. That's it's all so rigged, and so it fills me with such anger. Twitter's such a poison place, but yet at the same time, it's the only place where you're going to find truth, because you'll turn on mainstream TV. Have you heard anything about this police bill on mainstream TV? Because I haven't.
Very little. What I have heard is mostly focused on the impact, the protests over or vigil for this poor woman who got murdered.
You won't hear nothing. You won't hear nothing about minority groups, because it doesn't matter. We don't matter.
Yes.
So I'm just in this place where I have such a short fuse with everything, and I really 5 years of another world is possible. And then the party destroyed itself to make sure that wasn't. I'm so disgusted with the party. I hate them more. But we're also in a place where we've got people coming up with brilliant ideas, and it's always doing it through Labour. I just really think that the question needs to be put out there: that is socialism ever gonna be through Labour? Because from where I see it, they're the big fucking barrier to it. And they're like, they don't care about what's going on right now. Look, Keir's whole battle at the moment is getting rid of every single person that wants to stand up for themselves and stand up for socialist policies. Why have you got a Socialist Democrat Party on your card? You aren't socialists. And I feel so like the people that are hanging on now, I feel so bad for them, because I just don't know where your fight's gonna go, because you can't be democratic with these people, because they're just gonna rig everything anyway. You can play by the rules. You can have 1,000 people more vote for the left-wing candidate. They'll just suspend them. Look what happened in Liverpool, in Bristol. They're rigging everything from within.
Yes.
And so anyway, I'm getting off the subject of what's going on with my lot, because I've just been thinking about it and going over it. And you know what? Like, I've had like 10 years since I wrote my first book. It's been like 10 years since all the stuff that happened with that. And even when I used to do interviews with that, I remember I did an interview, a BBC interview then, to talk about it. And all they did was try and bait me to say that gypsies were horrible people. Actually, I've never done an interview with BBC that hasn't done that to me. And so I spend 10 years trying to stand up for your culture, and nothing changes. And it's extremely frustrating. So when I see this bill go through, I expect no fight from it. When I see David Lammy talking about it now, I just think, you charlatan, because you were going to abstain on this the other day. Sorry if you hear a snore, that's my dog. He's in my lap.
Not a problem.
It's a random snoring thing. I think it's just really upsetting to know that how in danger, like, my culture are dying out. We're a dead race, because the laws against what we even being able to exist have got tighter and tighter over the years. There's nothing left, and all they've got is their pride left. Like, we've been able to survive through so many things, and now we got this. And I'm hoping that I keep hoping for what we consider the left to stand up, and then I see a protest for 3 months' time, because people don't want to cause any. Well, they're doing the same as Reclaim the Streets have done. Let's have a protest, but we'll do it under the government's conditions. What's the point then?
Yes.
What's the point? Let's have another Zoom meeting to our own echo chamber. What's the point? Let's have another campaign about what we already believe. We're so polarized. The right only listen to the right. The middle only listen to the middle and delude themselves. And the left seem to be where we are. I suppose, I love this show. I love Socialist Telly. And it's been great it's been great, joining and watching you guys chat, and, really getting some brilliant people. But I think, but a big reason why I think it's really good to talk is that I'd really like for us to start talking about Socialists and Labour, and does that work anymore?
Yeah. Well, that's the big question at the minute that lots of people are wrestling with, and I've recommended that people
are walking away.
Yes, and and that's been probably the biggest dividing line in the left at the minute, is the ones who want to quit and try.
The last big fight I remember was the NEC vote. and then we all did that whole thing to get the new NEC panel in, and it got fucked for us anyway. And so it's, you know, all I find is that we end up with these NEC meetings happening where the left of the NEC are just treated like garbage and have no choice but to leave meetings because they're just not even taken seriously. And
well,
you've
that's
got
the ultimate irony in some ways is the fact that, you know, when Corbyn was in charge, the Labour right spent 5 years, you know, fully enabled and amplified by their pals in the media, bleating about how they were being bullied, they were being mistreated, they were being picked on, they were being victimised, they were being targeted, etc.
Yep.
99.9% of which was no doubt nonsense. However, as soon as they got hold of the reins of power again, they haven't hesitated a moment to do exactly what they were accusing the left of doing. And really, it was just, you know, I think it was a bit of transference. There was, you know, they were assuming that the left would do to them what they, or wouldn't they claim we would do to them what they would fully intend to do to us if they got the opportunity to do it. And I mean, my regret, because I was never a subscriber to the nicer kind of politics, I'll be honest.
No,
was that we should have acted with some, you know, with more ruthlessness than we did. But
exactly,
you know, we are where we are at the minute, and it's a tricky question. So I want to ask you a little bit, because you know, we'll come to it in a second, because there are, you know, there may well be people watching that really don't have much clue about, you know, the GRT lifestyle, such as, you know, if you can say there is one, the experience of life.
Aside from running for cover and trying to stick up for ourselves now, over the years we've just you've got the Daily Mail version of what we are. You've got the Hunchback of Notre Dame version of what we are. We're a community and a race of people that I'm very proud of being what I am, and I'm very proud of my culture. And I think that one thing that the solidarity that gypsies and travellers have for each other, I wish the left had.
Yes,
and that's something that is incredibly moving, and I think just wanting to exist and live the way that they always have done. You know, I can hear people in the comments now saying, "Oh, but you leave behind all your trash. Oh, but you beat people up." I'm like, yeah, okay, you come and claim Jimmy Savile then, because he was a gypsy, right? You know, you come and claim one of your lot then. You know, like I'm sick of the argument that gypsies are all bad people, when I'm not going to sit there and talk about, you know, I'm not going to talk about Fred and Rose West and say, well, you know, because it's stupid tarnishing people with the same brush. There's good and bad people everywhere. There's dodgy people and there's whatever people, but you can't tarnish us all the same way, especially when we're ruled by, and have been for all of my lifetime, a very right-wing press that can't stand us and would like us just to be wiped out. And that was a Tory policy in their manifesto, and that's what they've got. But I don't, you know, the gypsy community, we've been around for centuries. Yes, you know, and I'm very, very sad to see that this is gonna bring it to an end. Because once you take away their livelihood and make us all homeless, what have you got left? You know, I honestly, I've lived away from home for like a lot of years now, but the lifestyle, I miss it so much. But one thing I do miss more than anything is the community and the solidarity we have with each other. And I think about older relatives now that still move around and whatever else, that have no idea that this is going on. And one day it's just going to hit them. You'll just have people kind of showing up to be able to say this kind of stuff and act this way. Yeah, it breaks my heart, really.
Yes. I want to bring up something that came up. This was 4 years ago. This is 2017, and in the 2017 election, the Tories managed to get themselves a few MPs elected in Scotland, and one of them got interviewed. A guy called Douglas Ross. He's one of their kind of leading lights up there, if you can use that word about a Tory. And he was offered the chance to, they said to him, if there's one thing you could do, if you could do anything you want to, now that you're an MP, what would you do? And the one thing he picked was clamp down on gypsies. You not end poverty.
Put another minority into that, and that's, do you know what I mean? That's what that is.
Yes,
it's the most abhorrent racism, and that's full on Nazi Germany shit. That
yes. Well, let's play what he said.
Okay.
And I'll let people hear, and then I'm going to look at the a letter to him that was written by a young lad. I think he was only 14 at the time. A young gypsy boy who'd written about how that had impacted him and what his life was like, and that was likely to worsen. And it'll give people a bit of an idea as to what you and others are facing. Let's put this in here. Give me 1 second. So I have this video there. This is Douglas Ross talking not long after he'd been elected.
Can't.
You could do anything that you want to without repercussions. I'd like to see tougher enforcement against gypsy travellers. And this was the letter that Ben Bennett wrote to him. Dear Douglas, my name is Benjamin Bennett. I'm 13-year-old gypsy, 13, sorry. English Romany gypsy. I was disturbed to see your comments today. And he goes on, he says, I'd like to understand why you would concentrate all your efforts on tougher enforcement against gypsies and travellers. Should you be Prime Minister for the day, would you talk about any other community in such a derogatory way? He goes on, he says, do you have any understanding how your comments impact on young gypsies and travellers like myself? I've been to 12 schools in my 13 years and have suffered terrible racist attacks, both verbal and physical. The latest racist attack left me having to go to hospital to be put in plaster. There are no more schools in my area left to try. Why are you not using your position as an MP to encourage equality and community cohesion? So it looks to me like Douglas Ross got his wish. If there's one thing you could do with no repercussions, I'd like to clamp down on gypsy travellers. I'm not one, and it leaves me almost speechless. For a young lad who was only 13 then to be put in a position of having to write that very moving kind of statement to this MP, who I understand subsequently apologised, but look at what his party's doing now, and he will have been one of the MPs waving that through.
That's what we all go through. That's what we go through, and like, sorry, my dog I've got a French bulldog and he's the loudest snorer, so I'm sorry. But we go through that stuff, and that poor boy feeling that he has to write that letter to him, and he would have looked at that and just thought, fuck you, because that's just what they do, evil. I can't explain I remember the fight just to get us to be in schools for a month at a time before we'd all have to kind of get kicked out, and just the way everything would be fine until the parents would all start talking about it, and then the kids would start bringing in the language, and that's when you start getting in fights every day and called pikey bastards and whatever else, and that sticks with you. And when that, I mean, that was happening when I was growing up, and it happens now. We are purposely, even when we are in school, we're purposely kept away from other kids because people just don't like it. They think that we're going to do something really terrible to them, like, oh God forbid, we're going to put a curse on them or something stupid like that. Or have a bad influence in some way. It's so honestly, some of the stuff that I hear about what they think we are, just makes me sick at how stupid it is and how brain dead it is. But yet, Steve, I've had this argument and had these conversations so many times, I'm knackered from it because I know it never gets anywhere. And like this bill passing, we were always on it. We were a Tory party promise to be gotten rid of. And you had people that would sooner vote for Change UK or the Lib Dems knowing full well they weren't going to win.
Yes.
People don't care.
Yeah. The other thing I want to look at briefly as well, just to before we come back to that, but just to clarify on the issue regarding seizure of property and vehicles and so on. This is from the site Gypsy-Traveller.org, and this is about a consultation. But here we can see, what the bill is included in terms of its treatment of gypsy travellers, and essentially classifying encampments as trespass, and therefore giving the police the right to just seize all of their equipment. And
what happens when you give the police that kind of free for all?
Well, we've seen what happens when the police are supposed to be responding sensitively to stuff last weekend. So what they can do when they're allowed to treat somebody as criminals is a frightening thought. And the police being used as political pawns is not a new thing, but it's certainly something that we shouldn't be encouraging and widening the government's powers to abuse. But this says here, it's about granting the police the power to seize vehicles and homes from trespassers. So it's classified the traveller lifestyle as trespass, essentially. And the flip side of that coin is the fact that we've got a shortage of gypsy and traveller sites. So opportunities to camp legally are being removed, and then the punishments for camping illegally are being ramped up even further, which is shocking. Really, they wouldn't even think of getting away, I don't think, with treatment like that.
No. And then at the same, we already know what the problem, even like with council housing and all that is. You have to be literally homeless to do it. But it's, to think that you can. There is absolutely bias against travellers and gypsies, and so for people to think that police given free rein to treat us like crap is not going to happen, you're talking out your arse. That's absolute rubbish. You know it. I know it. You know it. We all know it. We're a race of people that it's totally fine to be to act that way with us and to completely get away with it. I'm already expecting all of this talk about us to be over within a couple of days, because people don't really care. Not even the people that are supposed to represent us. We just have to take it. I'm also disappointed in the in actual organisations that give platforms to people, big gypsy champions like, I nearly said her name, but another MP that champions herself as meant to be about educating young gypsies. Where were you on Bell's bill? She wasn't there, but yet she'll go and do all these interviews with the GRT magazines and stuff, because column space. I'll talk about how much I care. You'll do a Theresa May. That's what you're doing. You'll talk.
When you say Bell's bill, I presume you mean Bell Ribeiro Addy's amendment attempt yesterday that was trying to stop this thing in its tracks and failed.
And Labour amended it again.
Yeah, and again, that's a shocking comment on the state of Parliament and the state of the Commons at the minute. Now, you mentioned near the top of the programme, mate, you said about, that, or in your tweet last night as well, you said about the mistreatment of gypsy travellers being a vote winner. I mean,
it is.
Expand on that a little bit for me, please.
It is. That's the thing, is that being anti-gypsy is considered a vote winner. Being anti-gypsy is considered funny. Being anti-gypsy is considered just something that is, it's totally fine. Like, the language, the racist language towards gypsies is constantly in the comments, because it's totally fine.
There was a situation with a leading Labour MP back in the old days of back in the old days of Tony Blair, who was he was a candidate in the election, and he was recommending, he wanted to put out racist, something to appeal to the racists in his constituency, essentially, because he thought that would be a vote winner for him. He ended up out of his job altogether and had to be, if I remember rightly, there were criminal proceedings as well for that. So, that's what it was like. Nowadays, sadly, we see people doing very similar things and getting promoted onto the front bench because of it, and that's on the Tory side where you'd expect that, but on the Labour side, which should be doing better. So
you expect it from the Tories, but they seem to treat their own better than Labour do. And because I find that after all that time and all that work, and all that little handful of the left MPs were trying to do, all the while you had the people that are now on the front bench, because that's where they are now. Every single ghoul that was on every single TV station telling you a load of lies and a load of rubbish about their party and their leader every single day, loving the celebrity of it. Now they're on the front bench, and it disgusts me. But it's the way that they've been on the Gypsy front, which is why I can't morally be a member of Labour, and it's why I get frustrated at Labour as a whole, because I just think if you're a socialist party, you should be sticking up for everyone. If you're an anti-racist party, you should be sticking up for everyone, but you aren't. So you're none of these things. And I'm almost finding the idea of trying to change the current Labour Party from within as impossible as me going and joining the Tories and trying to do it that way. Because I've met some absolutely terrible Labour staff that have no time of day for people like me and people like my family, and it sickens me. And I'm every time I think about it, I get enraged again that it took these poor girls going through what they did at this vigil for Labour to finally pull their finger out, and then they'll mention the Gypsy thing because it's just part of the collateral. But they didn't care before. This would have just been abstained on. We know it. So all of the the Gypsy news orgs and charities that gave our MPs the benefit of the doubt while they played you, because they did. And I'm angry for them as well, because that we have to settle for crumbs. I was angry that an apology from this one MP who's on the front bench was enough, and he still kept his job, and one of the big left MPs who everyone loves never said a word on it until after Traveller's Times published basically it's fine now, he said he's sorry, and that was the only time when this big left MP mentioned it, and he tweeted it. And I basically was like, so now the Traveller's Times has said it's fine, that means all travellers are fine with it now then, does it? That's it, we should all forget it. I was after blood then. I was just, I was so angry. I wouldn't have been happy until he was fired. But again, we have to settle for crumbs. That was enough. Moment over. And it just annoys me that people only seem to take a stance once the moment's gone. But that's something that always seems to happen.
Well, that's the nearest that Labour gets to a policy at the moment, I think. Let's comment on stuff once it doesn't matter anymore.
Like, you've got these big Labour left MPs. I'm like, I've seen you argue in the Zoom meetings. I've seen you shouting at the members for not staying. I've seen you shouting about staying in the trenches. I've seen you get angry at members for leaving. But then The best you'll do on like everywhere else, you'll send a subtweet or a picture of yourself on a picket line 30 years ago. It doesn't do nothing. It's not doing nothing. You need to do more than that. Because if you're not calling out the leader, if you're not calling out the people in your own party that are deliberately smashing it to pieces, I'm convinced that Labour want to lose. They're so bad at the moment. They're literally like, we were the biggest left-wing party in Europe, and it's been infiltrated by people that seem to, it's like their job is basically to destroy it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people would say it that way, mate. I mean, it's a bleak time at the moment, and I really feel for you. Is there anything, and the answer might be no, but is there anything that people can do of goodwill who want to try and help, at least show some support, at least give you some sense of solidarity, sympathy, whatever else it might be, or practically speaking, to try to improve things for you?
Fight this bill. Fight this bill.
For people who are not clear yet on that, it's not yet. It went through yesterday, but that was what's called its second reading. So the process of
they say it's gonna needs. You know, I've had people tweet saying, "Oh, it needs to go for a third reading yet," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's when everyone's going to decide to change their mind. That's not going to happen. It'll pass the third reading. We know it already. We know that Parliament are not going to save us."
So when you say fight this bill, you're talking about,
I mean,
non-parliamentary.
Yeah, Parliament's not going to save this bill. We know that. We know that the Conservatives all voted for it, and they got a majority. So which Conservative's going to have a change of heart at this point? None of them, you know. And so we already know it's going to pass the third hearing. So my thing is we have to fight this bill, and please don't be scared of losing your membership to actually speak up. Because when I saw the tweets about a protest on the 26th of June today, I was like, that's more than 3 months away. That's more than 3 months away. Where's the solidarity in that? I'm like, you've God, is it Sisters Uncut that have done?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
The people that arranged these, that actually took the reclaim the streets.
Oh right, yeah.
Happen. And I just thought, that's what we need. We need people like that, because they literally got their hands dirty and went in and they literally took the reins from that party that got too scared and got more concerned about having words with Sadiq Khan and whoever else and going on telly, rather than actually getting people together to protest something and to actually have that vigil and make it go through. And we need more of that. Not people that are too scared to lose their memberships or their platform to actually speak up. And so a protest on the 26th of June, even, yes, you know, I understand it's in, you know, a nice gesture and whatever else, but it's rubbish. It's not like, I don't know. I don't have an answer, because I don't, I've kind of lost my faith in people at the moment. I find that a lot of our left do it for the retweets. I find that even left media has its own hierarchy, and I think that there's, you know, I get angry at the left media and the left people that write these extensive kind of columns that I feel like I need to have a degree to even understand. And you're like, how is this meant to be appealing to people? No wonder you're losing, you know. But yet the hierarchy in that, you know, my only thing is fight this bill, and I want to do all I can, but I'm not Unite. I can't arrange a protest. But don't just tweet about fighting it or say we must do this and then you do nothing. People, we all need to gather together and do something more than just go to decide whether June the 26th is a good time to actually get out on the streets and fight back, because that's where we are now. The third bill the third reading will pass. We know it already. We already know it. I'm sorry, Steve. I feel like I've just been ranting and I haven't really covered things properly. I just haven't slept tonight, and I feel I could have represented my culture a lot more today by being a lot more articulate, and that's why I wanted my cousin Luke from Labour GRT to come on, because he's a lot more clued up than I am, but he's working today. So I've had to just kind of come on with my anger and swear words instead. And
I think the way that it's impacted you is about as articulate as anything could get on it, mate, to be honest. But tell Luke if he wants to come on, we'll sort out another time for him as well.
Yeah, go and support them as well, because I do, because actually he was talking about his disdain for Labour abstaining on this bill the other day and ended up getting attacked by right people in the party, basically wanting to replace Labour GRT. So they basically wanted to put us all in the BAME group, you know, their BAME Labour account with their 2 votes.
Yes, well, we've already seen that as we heard the other night from an NEC member, that the Labour right is trying to hijack this new organisation and make it serve their interests and not the interests of the people it's supposed to be representing, which is tragically about par for the course. You know?
We've seen it
mate, I really appreciate it. I know it's been a tough time for you, and you know you've had a rough night as well. Hopefully, it's given people at least a.
And I'm sorry that I'm really sorry that this bill has gone through, and I'm really sorry that I can't do more for my culture right now, and I'm really sorry that I'm really sorry that this situation has got this bad where I'm just really angry at the left.
I don't think you have anything to apologise for. So I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, it's given people a flavour for the human impact of this shit. You know that just goes through with a wink and a nod from the BBC, who don't give it a mention, etc. And
not a thing.
At least you know, as many as this reach will have some idea of the impact and effect that this has on people and who are being targeted, and it is targeting just on the basis of their ethnicity and their traditional lifestyle. Hopefully we'll get Luke on again in the follow-up program and we'll get things to hear from him. But I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you for everybody who's watching. I hope you are feeling moved, outraged, shocked, horrified, and generally traumatized, because that's the appropriate response to what's going on at the minute. And you know, please God, there won't be people who are just going, well, it's yet more background noise, and what can we do? We need to be aware.
More than tweet.
We need to also act.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, Mikey. And yeah, let's hope things get better. And let's fight to make them so. If we fight, we might lose, as Bob Crow said. But if we don't fight, then we definitely
won't, because we are the many.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old saying, but it's a good one.
Bless you, mate. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot.